Hi, I'm Kimmy Rose, and I wanted to welcome you with a look within. And this is just all about lighting the way for you, lighting your path, and just giving you some messages about what's going on during these times and talking about the spiritual elements of things. This week, I just want to start out by talking a little bit about the energy that's out there. I've noticed a lot of people that are coming to me and they're saying, wow, I just feel like everything's kind of moving away from me and I need to just center and not freak out, but I feel freaked out. And it's just kind of like people are like all over the place. And I did it that way because that's what they're doing. And one of the things that I could say for this week, which is really important, which we're going into the week of the 17th. It's all about really feeling the void. And when I say that, some people might say, what is feeling the void? I don't want to feel void of things or empty of things or feel without anything. What is feeling the void? Feeling the void is really going into the inner part of yourself and feeling you. It's not about feeling whole with someone else or whole through other people. It's about feeling the wholeness just in you. And when you do that and you can really get right with yourself inside, you will have this wonderful divine communication that starts to happen with God, with Creator. Doing so, it opens up, it lights away, going within, taking a deeper look within. It lights up a path and it gives you a better direction. And I was asked kind of talking about, gosh, what example could I use? And one of the examples I would like to use is the example of Moses. Or actually, I could say Moses, Abraham, the Old Testament. And going within, having faith, hearing the pneuma, which is P-N-U-E-M-A, pneuma, which is the Spirit of God, the voice of God, your breath, by taking that deep breath in and just exhaling and really being still. Pneuma is what came to me in meditation. And so I was thinking about who could I share, and I was thinking about Jesus. And then I thought about the different types of faith. So I thought, let's start with Moses. And let's talk about faith. Like, really think about it. Back in the days where, people, they knew there was a God, but they believed in a God of wrath, a God of anger, a God of if you don't do things a certain way, it's going to turn out that way. But what they don't really realize is that's not how God was. God actually is very loving, and yes, there are tests that people go through, but the wrath and the rules came from man. If you look at the Bible and you really go through the times of, going past even Moses, and we will go back to Moses, but Augustus Caesar, he's the one that instilled all these rules and regulations and properness, and people, they start to lose themselves to outside rules if they don't have rules. It's like people don't know how to check in with their own consciousness. That's something I tell my kids. I always say, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and you can feel good about the person you're looking at, that's the only thing that matters. Because you have to be right with you. And so, going back to the story of Moses, think about the times that Moses was in, and even his situation. Moses being raised as a baby, actually put in the river, the Nile, and picked up by the Pharaoh's family, and loved and raised. And the new Pharaoh being his brother, as he grew up, Moses had a speech impediment, believe it or not. He had a stuttering problem. And so he wasn't like the most sociable or anything like that, but he did always get this feeling when he was in his brother's house, when his brother, the Pharaoh, inherited the kingdom, and he saw the people, his people really. He didn't know quite then that they were his people, working in slavery. He always felt like this just doesn't feel right. Something's not good about this. He had this inner voice that was telling him, just like many of you may feel like, well, gee, something doesn't feel right. Maybe there's more to my purpose than I can know. How many times do you say that to yourself? And how many times do you really look for an answer? I really believe that Moses had a real discernment with learning to communicate with himself, probably because of speech impediment. If you think about it, it does make you kind of go within and have that inner talk within you. So Moses, growing up being a boy, he got a message from God. And you've heard about the different plagues, the 10 plagues. There's one that they're not quite sure. I've heard what exactly that plague was. But he had a message, and just think about this. His brother is the Pharaoh. He's living in that place, and he's seeing his people. And his people weren't able to worship God the way they wanted to worship God, because the Pharaoh was, there were rules. You worship these idols, you do this, you do that, and you're a slave. If you don't do things our way, you're a slave. And those people gave up their freedoms. And there are many people that give up their freedoms or feel like they need to give up their freedoms for God. And now this is going back to faith, okay? Now, Jesus, when he came, it was about no longer giving up freedoms. We'll talk about that next week. Right now, we're going to talk about a Passover that is different. A different type of Passover. And something, when I say about going within and listening to yourself, it's the story of Moses. He got this message, and the message was that he was the chosen one. He was visited by an angel, Aaron also, by his side, and he was told that he was to free God's people, which were also Moses' people, from the Pharaoh, from the kingdom of Egypt, and take them to the promised land. So Moses gets this message. He's living in the palace, his brother that he was raised with being the Pharaoh, and he's getting a message that I'm supposed to go and tell my brother this. Yet somehow inside he had this feeling that something wasn't right. He always had that feeling. And he did. They said he would go out and he would kind of visit the people and bring them things. So he knew that those were people that he felt more connected to. And some of you may even have that in your own family. You might feel like, wow, this just isn't me. This is not what I resonate with. That doesn't mean you have to leave your family or anything like that, but you may get a voice that says you need to separate and go within. And so Moses checked in with that voice. He heard it, and he waited a while, and he got another message. And the message is please free my people. They are not able to worship me the way that I wish them to worship. And really, God, when God was speaking, Moses said, "Who are you that speaks to me?" And the voice said, "I am that I am." Think about that. I am that I am. That's what God said. I am that I am. So Moses, hearing that voice, was kind of like, I am that I am. But wait a minute, he saw a vision. He was also given a staff. And he said, with this staff you will. This is your strength. And God would help him. And God would show him how to do this. In your life, Is there anything that you feel passionate about? And do you feel like you can't do it? Because you know you can, because you do have a voice within. And if it's talking to you, it's saying, do this. Get still with yourself. Stop listening to other people. You got to go and punch in a clock, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. You can do anything. I thought, therefore I did. I am, therefore I am. God was saying, I am in you. I am that I am. That's who God said God was. So God was the power of God and the power of the Holy Spirit inside of Moses. Same as you. You can make a difference. So Moses, you know, hearing that message, he takes a staff. He's like, okay, I'm going to do this. And he got a little bit worried. What am I going to do? And he got the message, I will tell you when it is time. He said, go to your brother. And he also said, I will harden your brother's heart. And Moses said, that's not fair. You're going to harden his heart? Just give him a chance. I mean, he loved his brother. And he said, no, I will have to harden his heart so that my people will know it is me. Like, wow. So they didn't have faith either, or they had to have to see something extraordinary. And that's the difference between Moses and Abraham and Abram and different people that are in the Old Testament, is they were men who came into faith where Jesus came with faith. And Jesus also wants us to come with faith. But right now, just talking about Moses, he got the message. Go tell the Pharaoh to free my people, or I will. And he started, fill the land with rocks. And with your staff, you know, he would use a staff, or he would put dirt in the air, and different things came upon the people, the boils. You know the story over and over. Each time the Pharaoh would say, no, I will not free the people. And Moses, with all the compassion in his heart, because his brother he's speaking to, and he didn't want to see the pain. He didn't want to see the pain with the people he was raised with the Egyptians and his brother, yet he knew those were his people, and he knew he was getting this message, and he knew that he resonated with it. He knew that it was part of him. So Moses listened. And each time, he came to his brother with an open heart. And his brother actually let him in and listened to him. But said, I will not free the people. And it has been said that his brother would say, Moses, why are you doing this? Just think about maybe the questions Moses might have had in his head, thinking, wow, here's some people that fed me and took care of me and took me in when my own people let me go. And all this stuff is happening to free my own people. How might some people feel about that if you were to be maybe adopted and then were drawn back to your family? Or maybe drawn back to a spiritual family? There had to be a great trust and a great faith. And finally, through the different plagues, was the very, very, very darkest plague, which one was one where God said to Moses, go to your brother. And remember, his brother, he said, go to the Pharaoh, who is his brother, and say, if you do not free my people, I will take the firstborn son of every person who does not mark. Slaughter a lamb and mark the words, certain words over the doorway. So, through these plagues, now you have to remember, there were Moses' people, the people of God who worshiped God, who believed in God, believed in the I am that I am, and to go to a promised land of freedom and away from slavery, because we're not to be slaves. they did go through some of these plagues and the frogs and all that. And this was one particular thing that they had to have great faith and listen to. And Moses, with all his heart, went to his brother